We have called this episode Self-Government and Consent of the Governed.
Hello, this is episode 2 of our video series we call Self-Government and Consent of the Governed. And this is part of a larger project that I'm working on with Thomas Paine called Common Sense, Common Good. This is I am Avery Mann, my allegorical alias, say that again, allegorical alias, to represent every man, or the common man that Thomas Paine was reaching out to with his pamphlet, Common Sense. Episode 1 explained how Paine and I got acquainted in my project, and I told him it had to do with trying to get the people involved in restoring our republic, and he said, "Hey, I'll do that. I've done it before." And he went out, got Benjamin Franklin, roused him from the quantum universe and some other people, and I explained most of that earlier. But we've explained then too that we have this small committee of 5, we call it, with Paine and Benjamin Franklin and Patrick Henry and Hannah Arendt, who died in 1971, and myself. I'm the living representative and the secretary to the committee. As I said, this title is Then and Now, which means we're going to compare the revolutionary times to today. That's one part of it, but Paine and Hannah Arendt will pick up that part next. And then I want to warn you that we're going to turn it over to Benjamin Franklin, and he's going to talk about philosophy. And the title of this episode is Then and Now, which means we're going to compare American Revolutionary times to our times now. And Hannah Arendt and Thomas Paine will do that next. After that, Benjamin Franklin is going to talk about politics, or philosophy mostly, but from a political point of view. And unlike a true academic philosopher or a lawyer who makes language about law and philosophy hard to understand, he's going to make it clear, I believe. Speaking of law and philosophy, law, philosophy, science, politics, and truth are all part of this, and those are foundations to what we know as knowledge or our information and our beliefs. Big part of our political world. I want to speak a little bit, though, about in terms of the differences between now and then with the concepts of independence and freedom. Contrast what those meant at that time. In the colonial times, 50 to 70% of the free white men owned land or operated their own businesses and trades and lived independently that way, which was a much higher percentage in America than existed in Europe. Even if it's that high in America, we're not counting women. Now, some women, of course, were quite independent and free, I'm sure, but not in the way we mean it now. So you take 50 to 70% of the men, divide that by 2, we got like 25 to 35% of the white free people in the United States, or the colonies then, were what we might call independent and free. Now, independence. In colonial times, most of these people A lot of people were living on farms. They were on the frontier. They were, growing their own food, raising their own livestock, harvesting everything, fighting off the natives, plowing their land by hand. They were living independently, but in the sense that I think we take freedom today, they were chained to their livelihoods. They were working dusk to dawn, 24/7, and they didn't have much freedom in the sense that we think about it. We now enjoy a lot of freedom from labor. So modern times give us a lot more freedom, and we're not independent like people were in those days either. We live in a world where we are pretty much completely dependent on society for our survival. So it's a much different world. So on that perspective, I guess we're free in a new sense, and we're also no longer independent in the way that we were. So now Thomas Paine and Hannah Arendt will pick it up with a more specific contrast about what lives were like in Paine's time and what it's like now.
Allow me to introduce my new best friend forever, Hannah Arendt.
Thank you, my Paine.
I am a pain in your Arendt, Hannah. We are grateful you have joined us. You lived amidst comforts unknown to us: medicines, vaccines, instant communication, and clean, hot water at will. In contrast, we heated with wood and pumped water by hand. Sanitation was a cold, private trip to a privy outdoors. Imagine venturing out in snow or sleet for nature's call, repeatedly each day. It was hardship and deprivation. Travel was a threat. New York to Philadelphia took 2 days, London to the colonies, a month each way. Ships broke from wear or storms. Naval catastrophe was a real and constant risk. Disease was rampant, treatment useless. In war, the risks of travel were 3 times higher. I almost died of typhoid when I crossed to America in 1774.
All right, Paine, I must interrupt you there. We are both dead now, remember? It is my charge to speak about this matter, and you have begun that admirably, except without me.
You are right, Hannah. I yield. You will describe how science and knowledge have advanced over 2 centuries.
Scientific advancements in cosmology influence faith in religion. The earth was no longer the center of the universe, and that challenged religious faith, leading to questions of monarchs as divine and implying personal relationships with God. Science sparked the Enlightenment and ideas of self-government. Those ideas supported the American and French revolutions. 2 later breakthroughs occurred around our Civil War: Darwin's theory of evolution and Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. Darwin radically challenged religious teaching about human status, and Marx redefined the accepted understanding of social order and economics. Darwin showed that humans are a continuum of evolution designed by struggle and death to contribute, adapt, and procreate. Marx exposed how industrialization and capital altered social classes that he identified as the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. The bourgeoisies were not aristocrats, but capitalists positioned between the aristocracy and the common people. This bourgeoisie class was developing in colonial America as the founders, but began to take political control during the Industrial Age, especially during the Civil War in the United States. The working, almost servant class was Marx's proletariat, who served industry. Marx proposed what the founders had feared, that those who produced what society requires might expect owners to pay a fair wage. On an entirely different front, Freud exposed that human beings are divided against themselves, that beneath conscious reason lies a depth of drives and impulses that most people neither understand nor control. What we call rationality is often a hasty arrangement of justifications for what it was we just did. Sex moved to a forbidden topic, to anxieties that mothers might be raising Oedipal sons. Then came Einstein. Einstein transformed our understanding of time, space, matter, and energy, contradicting common sense in the physical world. That knowledge brought new power, energy capable, as we now know, to make man a destroyer of worlds. Now we have quantum physics, which takes metaphysics back to prehistoric realms of mysticism and magic. Recently, the rise of technology, mass society, and modern media has transformed not only what we know, but how we think. Public opinion can be shaped, even manufactured. Medicine prolongs life. Genetics begins to redesign it. Artificial intelligence threatens to replicate or even replace aspects of human judgment. Reality itself becomes susceptible to manipulation. We now possess an unprecedented command over nature and increasingly over our own being by altering our nature. We evolved to adapt to challenges in local circumstances by cooperating in small bands, usually fewer than 100 souls. Now there are billions on the planet and millions in cities. The new field calls it evolutionary mismatch. We live in a world for which we are unprepared. I believe that human beings must act together to face and adapt to these challenges. Biological change will require millennia, while changing social designs and habits could occur overnight. If we, the united people of the United States, agreed how we consent to be governed, the parties would have no choice but to comply. Corporations and governments manipulate information on people whose survival depends on the systems they control. This leaves our species vulnerable to social forces that direct evolution. Are humans growing less independent and more compliant? And with that ominous question, I turn the floor back to you, Paine.
Thank you, Hannah. Indeed, that is an ominous speculation about Americans becoming more compliant. Evolution is slow, and perhaps we can reverse that trend. Meanwhile, as Avery advised, we are moving now to philosophy. Many imagine they live apart from philosophy, but that is just not true. I implied some political philosophy in common sense, that the people have an important role in government. I opposed monarchy. And I believed common people possess natural intuitions for morality and cooperation. However, most people in our times were very naive about history, science, and philosophy. However, as Hannah has described, American citizens today are generally aware of general scientific and philosophical concepts. We have asked our wise Dr. Franklin to put philosophy and modern politics into perspective. This could guide us in exploring how we, the united people of the United States, might go about reinventing our government.
Thank you, Paine and Hannah. Like you and Avery earlier have said, every person holds philosophical beliefs that are foundational to their lives. These beliefs shape us in both trivial and profound ways, integrating philosophy and politics into our worldviews. There are scores of ideas, traditions, innovations, and values that can clash or collaborate in society. The following is my primer of philosophy and politics, beginning with the wisdom of ancient Greece. Since ancient Greece, 2,500 years ago, 4 fields of this practice emerged. I will review them now, but I believe there is a fundamental omission in this classical classification, which I will explain later. First, metaphysics, or worldview. It deals with questions of what is matter, space, and time. How were the cosmos and humanity created? Is there a divine power? What is the purpose of existence? Until the 1960s, most Americans believed in a Christian God with final judgment. Many now are skeptical, and church attendance has fallen sharply. Science speaks of the Big Bang, but in politics, we must consider how society and government should be organized. Should there be a powerful control to limit human greed? Should government focus on punishment or reformation? Should we stress competition and provide advantages to those who produce or achieve most? Or should we be more collective and deliver assistance depending on disadvantages and needs? How much should we invest in security, both internally and from abroad, such as migrants and invasions by foreign nations? Should society support traditional practices of nationalism and religious authority? And if so, To what extent? Next is epistemology. How do we know truth versus opinion? What is justified knowledge versus faith? The scientific method began in 1400 when ancient texts from Greece and Rome were rediscovered and dispersed. Socrates was especially keen on questioning people's beliefs, and he has inspired skeptics and comics for centuries. As Hannah explained, science contradicted biblical explanations of the cosmos, bringing dramatic changes to the social order. Since then, Darwin, Marx, and Freud have disrupted our assumptions of human nature and unconscious motivations. Einstein made man a potential destroyer of worlds, and now AI may replace us with silicon androids. Epistemology is how we analyze events, create systems of social functioning, and predict the future. Third, logic and reason. While epistemology asks if beliefs are warranted, logic tests whether arguments are coherent. Together, they form the foundation of rational inquiry, science, philosophy, and meaningful public discourse. Fourth, ethics or values. This field and politics are bound together by morals, justice, and liberty. Every human is predisposed to adopt the language and customs of the culture into which they are born. We have traits for beneficial relationships and the common good, but also for personal freedom and power. The ancients examined the products of philosophy, but they did not focus on the operator, the human mind. They knew that emotions, or pathos, influenced human actions, but they concluded that its effects generally led to bad outcomes. Now for the omitted categories. First, passions, or pathos. Early philosophers distrusted them. David Hume recognized that without emotions, humans would not seek truth or have survived. Modern science shows the primary emotion in humans is seeking answers, closure, and relief from uncertainty. The second omitted category is rhetoric. Greeks used sophistry scornfully to describe persuasion regardless of truth. I add it because it fits the modern phenomena of political propaganda and virtual realities of social media. Since 1900, research into human nature has added more to philosophy than the original 4 classical forms. These additions have come in the forms of psychology, sociology, and evolutionary biology. New technologies now allow direct observation of the brain, leading to remarkable insights into our nature. I conclude with a depressing thought we call the plight of mankind. The present world is a flood of complexity. Informed human beings are no longer capable of dealing with the crushing amount of new information persistently demanding attention.
Dr. Franklin, I must say that we're concluding here on 2 points that are pretty discomforting. One is that the world is overwhelming for modern man, and we are, as I mentioned, very dependent. And actually, it's become so interdependent, so complex. I don't think any of us understands what's going on, and I think many people are overwhelmed by that. I know I am if I stop to think about it. And another point you raised here is that, in a way, we're kind of questioning whether we're evolving to become a complacent and compliant servant to this world economy that's actually kind of destroying our planet. Also, Hannah Arendt, apparently Hannah Arendt told Paine that she feared that Henry, that had said this before, is probably right, that we are devolving into this complacent species, and because of this situation. And frankly, I'm hoping you would be able to address that point for her, if you would.
Hannah, I praise your able summary of advancements in human knowledge, thought, insight, and command of the social environment. Humans now control, or accurately predict, climatic changes that directed our lives 240 years ago. Hannah, please listen closely, for my thought is this. Perhaps the problem is not that mankind has been overwhelmed by advancement and the modern knowledge and power it cannot manage, but our institutions remain designed for a simpler creature in a simpler world.
Thank you again, Dr. Franklin. We're concluding this now, and for an overall statement, our argument's going to be overall that we need to take action to get a sense of control over our lives and our futures. And in future episodes, we're working toward developing the idea of the united people of the United States of America and how we might go about trying to improve our republic and to put ourselves in positions where we can have some influence over our government rather than the other way around. We mean, referring back to what Henry said too about the Constitution being a document for the people to govern government, we think we agree with that. We think it should be also the Constitution gives power to government to govern us, but then we also it's an exchange. It's a symmetry or a balance that we're looking for here, and we don't have it that way now. Now it's government telling us what to do. One of the ways we'd like to try to alter this system is that if a branch exceeds the limits of their powers, that the Constitution says something about what it is we should do about it. Constitution's silent about that. We've discussed this, I think, but the founders believed that all future officials, elected officials, would be honorable, virtuous men, and I think we've learned that isn't always the case. So if we want a government that manages the people according to our consent, as the Declaration says, and it's a huge challenge, but we've done it before, and I think we could do it again. Concluding here, we're going to, in future episodes, talk about some ideas about what we think we can do, how to do it, and we'll come to that. However, the first step is we the people, have to learn how to discuss political issues civilly and constructively. And we need to do that if the people are going to agree how we consent to be governed. And otherwise, if we can't agree on how we want to be governed, we know government will decide that for us. And that's how, losing my voice here. Government will decide that for us. And that is how it's been going for over 200 years now. Just talking politics is challenging, but experiences demonstrated hundreds of times that with good help, people can successfully engage in constructive political discourse. And one tactic we're leading toward is to avoid talking about political policies in particulars and specifics, but engage in discussions of political philosophy and theory, kind of like what Franklin demonstrated here for us. Again, there is evidence based upon experience that suggests that this works too. Once we understand other people's experiences and their points of view that justify their beliefs, we learn to appreciate each other, and we can reach agreements about other things after we understand where people are really coming from rather than us judging and making that determination for them. And the evidence is, experience is, that people then can come together and agree on things. In our next episode, we're going to discuss a little more about philosophy, but we're going to get into a critical analysis of the Constitution. A lot of you may resist this, but it's what I think we need to do to look at it objectively. And I'm not talking about changing the fundamental foundational issues about equality and freedom. It's about how our government should work better for us. We just want to unite the people, not only the states. Thank you for your attention.